Okay, everybody, I think time's up for our break.
Been an amazing year, fantastic year from the perspective of the East Broad Top. Some amazing things going on, and certainly within the Friends, lots of amazing things going on. So I'm excited to talk about that. We'll not dwell on too much of the harder things. We'll just focus on all the great things that are happening with the Railroad and with the Friends. Randy, if you could pull up the slides, would be great. Awesome. Thank you. So let's go ahead and jump right into the agenda. Is the next slide there? Okay, so like I said, we had some great things this year, and the picture there, of course, is Millie christening her number 12 in front of the station there on August 13th, just 2 months ago. 60 years to the day from when she did that as a mere teenager. And it was a great event overall, and just one of many this year. So agenda, like I said, I'll try to keep this moving. We're going to hand off to a few folks for some specific topics, but I'm going to try to talk through a lot of it and try to keep things moving. But we'll have some opening remarks here, some introductions, things like that. We'll talk financials relatively briefly. Membership, wow, again, what a year. We'll go through our publications, Timber Transfer, our new e-newsletter, the company store, then the restoration work we're doing both in Rockhill Furnace and Robertsdale. And then we'll go down to 2021 fundraising campaign. So before you click the slide there, Randy, I'll just actually no, go ahead and click the next slide. Sorry. There we go. So let me introduce the board of directors. Like I said, this year's been a very interesting year, 2020. I wish we were doing this in person. I know everybody does. But we felt as a board it was best to do it this way. Considering that we have 100 folks online here now, would that be the right decision to have those 100 folks in a room or in a tent or in some close confines? And so we decided to do virtual, and so far it's been fantastic. Henry did a fantastic job kicking us off, and Randy's doing a great job hosting us, so much appreciated there. But let me just say the board has had some challenging decisions this year, along with some of our other leadership for restoration and for some other aspects. With the pandemic concerns, we've had some challenges that we've had to work through. And I bring that up only because I just want to compliment the board. I can't imagine working with a better group of guys. We've come through some tough decisions, some challenging things, made some big, very impactful decisions this year, which is great. We have some good debate, but everybody comes out, and we're all happy to spend time together with each other afterwards too. And so there's a lot of respect, but also a lot of good debate that happens. So much appreciate all these guys and everything they do. So I'll run down through the list. Of course, I'm listed first there, Andy Van Syak as your president. Mr. Bill Adams is our vice president. Kurt Miller has stepped up this year to take on the secretary role. So welcome Kurt to that position. Everybody knows Lee Rainey. You'll hear his name several times throughout this business meeting. No one person probably has had a bigger impact or bigger association with the East Broad Top over the past 40, 50 years. Dennis Straub, of course, has been with the board for a while now. Lawrence B. Miller, he crosses over with us. He is a good connection to the foundation as well. Randy Larian, of course, hosting the reunion today. Ray Davidowski does a lot of our fundraising work, cashes all your checks and sends you your appreciation letters. So great work there. And Nick Ozerak does a lot with our website and a lot of our communications, and brings a lot to the board as well. So the picture on the right, in happier times in 2019, we, as a board, went and visited the Reading Company Technical and Historical Society Museum in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. It was meant to be something of a fun trip, but also meant to be, a networking adventure. And we met with Dale Woodland and some of the other folks, DRC, TNHS, and we exchanged some ideas, and it was good. But don't worry, all the other pictures from here on out will be EBT related, but definitely that was a good outing. And so next, we generally give out several awards each year. And those awards capture great volunteer activities, great support to the organization. This year, we decided to award only one of those three awards, and it's the most significant, most prestigious of the three awards that the FEBT awards, and that is the FEBT Preservation Award. And this year, we present that to Mr. Brad Esposito, who is general manager of the East Broad Top. He helped, as Henry discussed there, helped assemble the team that has resurrected East Broad Top and is continuing to manage that effort. And he has been a member of the Friends for a long time. He and I and many others have volunteered there together over the years. He did a lot of work in the main shops himself and carpentry. And for those who don't know, he spent 20 years in both as an engineer, operating crew, and management for the Genesee and Wyoming Corporation on the Buffalo and Pittsburgh. So great person to have as the general manager of the East Broad Top. Brings a lot of experience, but yet youthful energy. And so we award to him the Preservation Award this year for ongoing and significant contributions to the sustained preservation of the East Broad Top Railroad. So much applause to Brad. Brad was not able to join us today, I don't believe. He has taken some time away from the railroad this weekend, well-earned time away, I might point out. And so watch for this. I'm going to write it up, put it in the timber transfer course, and then also at a future date when we can all be together, we'll make a formal presentation. But just wanted to get that announcement out there. So I mentioned membership. We'll step into the membership report here. Generally, Pete would give this report. I asked if I could just do it to keep things moving along, but we will hear from Pete in a little bit because he's decided to put on a second hat with us. So, but for the membership, as Pete says on his slide there, I believe we have had a good year, and mildly understated. But first, let me just thank Pete for everything he's doing. He has always been very solid, very fast to reply to your membership inquiries or get new membership packs out. I cannot think of a better membership department than the one the FEBT has, solely in Pete Clark. So let's get into those numbers a little bit. Next slide there. So you can see Pete asked the question, what is a good year? Well, you can see over the past decade there, we had been dropping in membership a little bit, not a lot, not precipitously, but you can see over the year that things were dropping, a level off there in the 750 area in the mid-teens here. But then all of a sudden 2020 happens and the railroad is bought, and bam, 575 new members. And I'll point out that that's as of October 6th, meaning that we still have almost 3 months of potential new members coming in. So incredible. We're over 1,300 members, the biggest we've ever been by far. So when I say I thank Pete for doing a great job with membership, he's not just doing a great job with membership like he's always been doing. He's been doubling duty this year, if not more. So next slide, please. Again, another set of metrics here to exemplify new members. So you can see there, while numbers were decreasing a little bit in the early part of the 2010s, that we still had new members joining at the rate of one every 10 days, one every 19 days, one every 2 weeks or so, until again, you hit 2020. And now Pete's doing a new membership packet, or I should say 2.25 new membership packets every day this year. So amazing. Next. And you can see this is a great plot just to kind of show you how things bumped up, right? In January and February, I should say December, January there on the graph, pretty level. And then all of a sudden February hit, right? February 14th, a Valentine's Day that we'll all remember, and membership spiked. And then you can continued to grow since then. And there are some other little spikes with, there was an article in the Trains Newswire one month that caused a little bit of a spike. The 60th anniversary may have caused a little bit of a spike. There's little things out there that trigger spikes in our membership growth, and Pete feels every one of them. I think what Pete would maybe appreciate sometimes is if he would get a heads up when those are coming, but can't always don't always know exactly when they're coming. But Pete has been doing a fantastic job rolling with all those punches. So next. So you can see here, this is the breakdown of the membership category-wise. We've had 8 new life members this year, so very much appreciate those. But definitely appreciate every member, and we're grateful to have you guys. And it really does show the foundation that there's a lot of interest out there, and they like to partner with us, and you'll see a lot more partnering between us and the foundation, and you as members will get some special time, special access type of things over time. So we appreciate that you're on board. Okay, next. Lastly, Pete doesn't do it truly alone. Pete is our membership department, but one of the biggest things in the last couple of years, of course, goes to Dave Phillips for getting the company store online. And with that, membership renewals and new memberships can be bought through the store. So thank you, Dave. And it's been phenomenal. The dollar amounts that come in via the store and what Dave did are just phenomenal. So thank you, Dave. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that you were going to hear Lee Rainey's name a couple of times. So I definitely want to thank Lee several times throughout this business meeting today. And that is the first example here is his new membership brochure. You're all familiar probably, or a lot of you might be familiar with the old gray membership brochures we've had for a decade now. Very solid document that they were. However, time has run their course. We have printed in color now. So we just got a new membership brochure. Categories just got a little clarification. Nothing's changed. And dues haven't changed other than a little bit of an increase for compensation of mailings to outside the U.S. But inside the U.S., no change to the membership dues structure. So much appreciated there. Okay. Next, before I get into the timber transfer update, I don't have a slide for it, but I'll just mention it, and that is the website and our social media presence. So Chris Coleman, of course, Nick Ozerak, John Morgan, and a few others definitely deserve a lot of appreciation for our website. It's beautiful. We launched that last year. You guys saw it then. But what's amazing this year, in 2019, we got about 11,000 hits. 11,000 or so people came to our website in 2019. In 2020, we've nearly doubled that to 21,000 and change. So fantastic. It's great that we had a new and modern website when all of this hit, when the foundation came to be. So, and then in other multimedia facets, Facebook numbers also way up. In 2019, our Facebook group had 129 likes. In 2020, 843 people jumped on to like our Facebook presence. So much appreciation to the web team and everything they're doing to help us get the word out there. Okay, so on to publications. Oh, timber transfer. Yeah, thanks, Randy. Jane, of course, Jane Clark is our editor for the timber transfer, and she has been doing a fantastic job for a couple of years. So I don't know what it is in the water in Damascus, Maryland, but a great team we have there with Pete doing the membership and Jane being the editor of the timber transfer. So much appreciated to them. Next slide. Authors for 2020. We had Dr. Lee Rainey, of course, Ron Pearson, Nick Ozerak, Russ Norris, Rick Case, Jim Bacon, Tom Deal, Hank Inman, and Ann Sparrow. So some great material in our last 4 issues, and I know there's some great material on deck from a lot of the same authors, but I don't know if Jane has new authors, but definitely Jane is always interested in new articles, new authors. We have gotten so much out of folks like Lee and Ron, but we'd love to hear from some others too. So much appreciated for your contributions. Cover photos. We have when I first looked at this slide myself, I have to admit, I kind of said, how do we have 5 cover photo artists? Well, there's a front and a back cover, right? but Matthew Malkowitz, Sonia, Mark Glucksman, Lawrence, and Dave Fletcher all had cover photos, front and back. So definitely, as she mentions at the bottom here, keep the articles coming and photos coming. Both can be used. So, and her email was a couple of slides back there. Hopefully you guys saw it. So. And then Jane always likes to have a favorite shot of the year. And so far is this photo from Mark Glucksman, I believe. And someone can chat in if I'm wrong, but I believe that is from last November. There's a photo event last November when Mark would have taken that photo, Mark Glucksman of River Rail. So it's a good pick, Jane. And then new this year, this is exciting, and this is where Lee Rainey gets some credit again. And finally, something we had been wanting to do for a while, but we got an e-newsletter off the ground. Hopefully all of you saw that. And if you didn't, let's make sure your email is in with Pete on the membership side. Anybody whose email we have, we sent this to. And the plan is to get this newsletter out every month, the first of each month. So watch for it in your inboxes on the first of each month. So like I said, Lee helped create it and did a fantastic job. But now our editor that stepped forward for the FEBT newsletter is Doug Davenport. And if you read the newsletter, you saw where I introduced him a little bit. His name might not be too familiar to many, but his roots with the East Broadtop and the Trolley Museum both date way back to his very early childhood. And so he's been around and is very happy to be able to contribute in a way like this when he's not able to travel to the railroad as regularly as some of the rest of us. So much appreciated Doug Davenport stepping up. Again, we'll take photos, we'll take articles for the newsletter as well. So much appreciated. A few folks have already been submitting, and so that is greatly appreciated. So you can see there's 2 email addresses you can send things to there and to contribute. Thank you, Randy. All right, company store update. You guys all know Dick Ullery and Wade Woodcock, and again, Dave Phillips do the company store. So some fantastic work out of these guys. These guys are also tireless and appreciate what they're doing. They have a lot of great products here. So we'll just touch on a few. So I'll also add, before I get into the specific products, the company store is one way that we raise funds. Dick, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was in the 5 digits. I think it was about $12,000 or so far this year, and that's not counting the memberships raised. And so the company store serves multiple purposes. It not only provides some product and support our modeler community and just fans in general, but it also does raise some funds for restoration work and other activities of the organization. So much appreciated to those guys. New products that are in, or at least hot products that are in. They have a few T-shirts in now. You can see the front and back there. The front, of course, the small logo. Back with the big picture. And I think they're working on a few others. We have the magnets. Those magnets were first created about 5 years ago for one of the fall reunions, but they're selling the FEBT logo. It's an acrylic magnet. The hats in the upper right you can get with the logo or with the what is the tender lettering of the mics. So the FEBT, simple, just orange lettering on a black hat. And of course, pins and tie tags fully stocked up. I don't know why I would have picked those 2 engine numbers to show, but we can keep going. So other products, of course, that they've had and continue to sell, and they continue to expand some too as things become available, or even as they create some product. Books, of course, on the left, we have books, drawings, documentation, and then, of course, on the right, modeling products. They have the main machine shop models from Broadtop Mountain Models, the Robertsdale Station Kit. They have 3D printed models of EBT specific things, mine carts, specific hoppers, like you can see the side dump hopper there, 802. And so they continue working on great products. If there's things you'd like them to carry, mention it to them, and we'll see if they can do it. And of course, you can always visit the store.febt.org website to see what they have. So the next slide here is another product that we definitely want to push. This is our 2021 FEBT wall calendar. features photos of all photos by Matthew Malkowitz. Fantastic photos, and those are on sale. Since we couldn't do the reunion in person, we're gonna sell them to you like you were here buying them, and that is free shipping. So you'll see that, and you'll see this slide come up during the breaks as well. But we were hoping to sell a lot of these at the reunion, of course, very time kind of centric product. And so we were hoping to sell them, but since we couldn't hold the reunion in person and let you walk home with it, like I said, free shipping to make it as if you were here. So please log on, buy some calendars, buy some books, anything else you'd like. Okay. So next up is the Rockhill Furnace Restoration Report. Hopefully Charlie is up and unmuted, and I'll let Charlie take it over.
Okay, well, as has been stated already, this year has been a record breaker. Since January work session, we've accumulated 4,235 hours of service at the EBT. To put that into real life terms, that's 2 full-time employees plus overtime. This year, nearly every work session, we had a track gang working tracks in Rockhill and recently in Robertsdale. I'll let Pete and Jane elaborate on that. Many thanks to Gene Tucker, who has volunteered his track tools and his expertise to take care of the track gangs, and many other volunteers that have showed up not only at work sessions, but also during the week. This year, the window crew, we've repaired and installed windows in the freight house, roundhouse stalls 7 and 8, and installed 5 temporary windows in the bus garage. Thanks to their efforts, the Orbisonia Rockhill Historical Society was able to use the freight house for their displays at the 60th anniversary event in August. Machine shops and boiler shops received a lot of straightening work from Woodford Brothers. In preparation for them arriving doing their work, volunteers moved 7 machines, several planer jigs, cabinets, and other miscellaneous equipment away from the walls, adjoining the alley between the buildings. So the floorboards could be removed so the Woodford Brothers could access floor joists in the bottom of the posts supporting the building. Once everything was straightened, the volunteers reinstalled old flooring, had to install some new flooring as well, to put everything back in place. And we were fortunate enough to get that done in time for shop tours to resume. Roof repairs are an ongoing project year-round at the railroad. This year, the south side of the machine shop, the overhanging roof had rusted through in many places, so that received new sheet metal. Also, new gutters were installed in the alley as well between the buildings. Loose roof panels were screwed down on the lumber shed roof. Shop roof valleys were attended to. Roundhouse roof received attention over stalls 1, 7, and 8. And the generator room received temporary roof repairs to hold it for winter. Plans are in the spring next year to put a rubber roof on that addition. And the blacksmith shop also received 1 smoke jack this year. This year, about 40 gallons of boxcar red paint were used. The electrician brake shop, pattern house, foundry, coal bin, boiler house, car shop north face, lower parts of the blacksmith south wall, and around the main shop's entrance were painted. New siding repairs on the machine shop and boiler shop were also primed. Moving on to the combine, we now have all the window sash for the car, and we're in progress of installing it. Ventilators for the car have been stripped and painted. The east side clear story is finished, And the rubber roof below the west side clear story has been glued down so we can continue with the clear story through the winter. Interior paint stripping continues, but it's nearly finished. We're expecting to apply interior paint in the spring of 2021. And the last minute work session this year, last weekend, hopper car 1036 was wire brushed and painted black and stenciled. At the end of September work week, volunteers cut hopper bottom parts out of steel sheets and helped punch holes in them using the punch press in the shops. And the railroad employees hot riveted those parts into the car. 1036 is now one of 3 hoppers been restored and back in ballast service. And one other project we worked on this year is brush cutting, both in the yard and to the south. Anyone who's been there this year has looked down that way. You notice the coal tipple has been cleared out around. The 2 section sheds have been all cleared out around. It's starting to look like a functioning railroad again, where the right-of-way keeps cut back, so reduce the threat of fires and whatnot with steam engines. So many thanks to all our volunteers. It's been a great year. We've got one more session left, first weekend in November, and then we'll start again in January. Don't have a schedule yet for 2021, still working on it. As you can imagine, with COVID and other events in the area, namely Penn State, trying to avoid those busy weekends for hotel rooms for volunteers. So as soon as I get it together, I'll get it out there. Any questions?
Okay. Charlie, thank you. So if folks have questions, definitely use the chat function. If you have a complex question, feel free to just shoot Chris a note in the chat function, and he'll unmute you, and we can take questions. But Charlie, amazing work going on, and if folks are working on questions, I'll just talk for a second. So Charlie, much appreciated. You said 5,000 or so hours, right? 5,000 plus.
4,235.
Okay. Got it. Great number. And the amazing thing is we canceled 1 or 2 work sessions due to COVID early on.
Correct.
And, the other thing I'll point out is even with COVID, we as we came back to work sessions, we were trying to figure out how do we sort of manage the crowd or restrict the number, you know, where are we comfortable? And so one of the great things this year is setting up Sign Up Genius, which many of you used to sign up for the fall reunion. But that was started by Charlie and Chris and a few others as a work session tool. And so Charlie, if you had anything to mention there, but that's been a fantastic advancement, so to speak, in the work sessions.
Absolutely.
So some great innovation going on. And I'll say too that traditionally over the last 5 to 10 years, right, we've been getting 15, 20 or so folks showing up at work sessions, depending on weather and whatnot. And this year we've consistently gotten 50 or more at several sessions.
Yes,
So
turnout's been great.
Okay, we had a question come in from Dean Melander. How far are we from having the full overhead belt system functioning?
Better question for Brad. He's going to be asking for some volunteers later on in October. He wants to do some work on the belt system around the planer. The big question about getting the full belt system working is getting a steam source to power the steam engine. They're using an air compressor, but that's roughly about 1/3 the speed it should be turning at. So everything will come in time. Everything's repairable with time and money. So keep that in mind.
Okay, we had a second question come in, which I think is another question for Brad, but I'll go ahead and read it off here. Hello, amazing work you guys have been doing of late. My question is about, it's Combine 14. I thought it was Locomotive 14. Sorry. Is the expectation for completion aimed for next year for the 2021 operating steam tourist heritage season? That's a mouthful.
Yeah. Answer is yes. Whether that means June or October, I do not know yet. We are putting the car back together. We are finished removing parts. We're finished installing plywood. So at this point, we're putting it back together. Nothing has been done with the trucks yet. Hopefully the trucks will be done, the car will be done, the locomotive will be done, everything comes together. That's my best hope. But I think we have a good chance of getting the car back in service in 2021. But again, I can't say whether spring or fall.
All right, that's all the questions we have at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Charlie. Charlie, any other last thoughts?
That's all, thanks.
All right, thank you very, very much for what you've been doing and dealing with the challenges not only of the pandemic, but of course the enormous increase in interest and volunteers, which is fantastic. We love everything everybody's doing out there, and Charlie definitely stepped up to the plate here and is finding ways to manage it. So much appreciated, Charlie.
Well, I must say the group of volunteers that we have make my job easy.
Great. Much appreciated. All right. So let's head up the mountain. And so Charlie did a great job absorbing and managing the increased workload in Rockhill with volunteers. And Pete did an amazing job with membership. And for some reason, doubling our membership didn't keep Pete from doing even more. So Pete, if you're unmuted there, Pete and Jane actually both are with us. So over to you, Pete.
So Pete and I will tag team this.
Okay.
First slide. So this was not last weekend, but a 1930s or 40s fan trip. But it shows the layout of Robertsdale. If you start from the far left, there's the company store, then the station. There's the train, obviously. There's a small dark building, which is the freight house. Then the company offices and the old post office, which is the one that we're working on now. The big foreground building is the engine house with the extension for housing an engine and passenger car. Next slide. Was that me?
It's me. Longtime leader Hank Inman retired. He had been the brains of Robertsdale Restoration. COVID did not retire. The flood of new memberships kept me quite busy. Robertsdale Restoration was dead in the water. But I realized that one day people would travel again, and there is immense interest in the EBT. See the membership report. Someday, people will again visit Robertsdale. And if we don't have something to show them, they will never come back. So in early August, 10 members agreed to meet to discuss the needs and plans for Robertsdale. They should be recognized. Brad Esposito, Andy Van Syke, Charlie Wooten, Ryan Rimshaw, Mark Reese, Gene Tucker, also known as Father Tuck, Friar Tuck, Bill Adams, Bill Reynolds, Jane Clark, and some other bum. Ryan Rimshaw agreed to be the crew leader for brush clearing from around the track, Mark Reese assisting. Gene Tucker agreed to be the crew leader for getting track back into speeder or handcar shape, Mark Reese assisting. They then had to upgrade that quite a bit. The track job got bigger as Brad Esposito declared his desire to move hoppers to Robertsdale for display. Bill Adams agreed to be the crew leader on getting the display panels project, which had been started years ago, to get that going again and completion. Andy Van Syke assisting. Bill Reynolds, a new member that you guys don't know, but you'll meet him eventually, agreed to be the crew leader for getting the new exterior doors installed. Charlie Wooten, Jane Clark, Pete Clark, and another new guy, Jerry Skyme, assisting. Guilt and shame forced me to agree to be the crew leader on painting, you know, when I was surrounded by all these people volunteering to do things. I want to emphasize that, as Charlie stated in Rockhill, I have also been humbled by the realization that not only did these people volunteer to do work, but they found my schedule of weekend work days to be totally insufficient, and they just randomly go there and work. Just crazy. Next slide, please.
So all those great plans, how did we do? Well, we had 281 man hours donated. This does not include the track gang, which I think was included in the Rockhill presentation. There were no man hours recorded in 2019, and maybe 20 or 30 in 2018. So that's a huge impact. As Pete said, the gang leader for the track restoration was Friar Tuck. And next slide. His gang got the scale track refurbished, and there are now 3 hoppers sitting there by the station. And people are instantly attracted to seeing cars at the station. Next slide. As he mentioned, Bill Reynolds, a friend of ours from down here, has volunteered to work on the doors. He has some carpentry experience. He and Charlie worked on the first door, which is actually hidden behind the open door in this picture. Charlie found that he was doing a pretty good job, so he's been on his own doing the other doors. I look back at the log. He spent one 15-hour day working on the door. These are all a challenge because all the doorways are, maybe not completely square, so the doors have to be planed down to fit. They are solid mahogany, which is very heavy, as you might imagine, but also such an upgrade from the piece of the garbage that we were using. They have nice hardware on them. It's not historic looking, but it's up to code. It has the lever kind of handle and crash bars for emergency exit. 3 of the 4 first level doors are done, and the 4th might get some work this year before the snow flies. But it's a secure building. There are no more bungee cords holding the doors locked. Next slide. And this is a picture of the upstairs door that goes out to the little balcony. Bill had to build up the masonry around the hole in order to then build a frame for that door. Right now, it's, as you see on the right, just held in place with a board, but that's much better than the plywood that had been there before. I was assisting him using my old skills as a mud pie maker, and wonder if we should put that on the skills inventory questionnaire in the future. Small painting jobs have been done. At least for the second time, Pete and I have painted that box and scale pit cover, Robertsdale gray. So you've been working on something a long time when you start having to refurbish the stuff that you had refurbished before. But don't worry, as it says, there are plenty more painting jobs. there's always a painting job to be done. One more slide. The museum shop had been located in the station, which was very dim. And now it's got this luxurious place next to the handicapped bathroom in the old post office. We've got much better lighting. We've got place to spread out items. This happens to be on a work day, so there's some tools and things we're not selling DeWalt, though that might be a popular option. There's a closet off to the left in this picture, which would be ideal for storing some inventory so that you won't have to go plowing through a bunch of old boxes to get that t-shirt that somebody wants. Yeah, the map in the background in this picture used to hang in the middle of the station. And again, it was very dark and it was kind of hard to read. When we moved it to this location, we said, oh, well, there's a legend at the bottom so you can tell what each item is. So it's you can get up close and personal with it. That's not its final location. Bill Adams has a plan for a 3D map, a terrain map. Yeah, but this will definitely be in there somewhere. The panels that you see, there are a couple on the left that you can see leaning up against the wall. These are going to be assembled in groups of 6, 2 groups of 6 in the middle of this room once we get all the construction stuff out of the way. And they will lead you through the history and progress of the railroad. So just wanted to say thanks to everybody that's helped.
So next slide, please. So what to expect? Well, a museum that's closed is of no use to anyone. We will attempt to have the museum open on a reliable schedule for next year. We intend to attempt, how's that for definitive? We're going to try and have it open every Saturday. In order for that to happen, we need you to volunteer to help man the museum. You should expect to see a call for folks to volunteer to be hosts at the museum starting next year. You should expect to hear of training days, because we're not going to ask you to host without telling you, what's expected and how to increase your knowledge so you can pass knowledge on to others. You should expect to see a call for donation of chairs, bookcases, reading lamps, EBT-related books and magazines for the second floor library and study. You didn't know that was going to be there, did you? Next slide, please.
And even more, you can expect to hear of plans to modify the freight doors on the station so the handcar can be moved without having to take the doors off the hinges. There'll be a walking tour with signed locations developed. We also you can expect to hear that the roof on the station needs to be completely replaced. You see the fundraising slides next up. And your museum will work in cooperation with the Miners Museum, the EBTF, and Bricktown Model Railroad Club, and other historical groups. Next.
You can expect to have a great time when you visit the FEBT Robertsdale Museum Complex.
Next. Any questions?
Okay, we got one more Rockhill question that came in right at the end. I'm going to slip into Charlie, and he's going to love this question. After you're done with Combine 14, which car will be worked on next? Charlie, I set it up for you to be unmuted.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, your guess is as good as mine. Combine 15 needs just as much or more work as 14 did. Personally, I'd like to see one of the cars we brought back from Colorado worked on. But you know, who knows what's going to happen with Combine 16 in New Jersey. There's lots of options. No decision at this point.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Robertsdale, has there been any mitigation measures done to prevent a flood damage as occurred about 15 years ago?
Yes. Since that time, work was done in the crawl space. There's a sump pump has been installed. And I will say that a unintended, as far as we're aware, aspect of the work that's being done on the road bridge that's right between the old post office and the new post office and going over the creek, is that they have cleaned up all the junk that was on the surface there, which is all the stuff that clogged the drain grate. So we think we're in much better shape, and we got some people who know how to spread some stuff that might be related to Agent Orange, and we're going to talk with them. You didn't hear that, though.
Okay, next question. It's a double question from the same person. First, how does it feel to have rolling stock about Robertsdale again? Second, what is to become of the station building? And I'm assuming that means now that it's no longer going to be the museum building.
Well, the addition of the cars has made a difference in how many people just randomly stop by. People that live in the town and say, hey, there's cars here. So it's a double-edged sword because we're trying to get some work done, but people are always coming by and saying, hey, what's going on? What's going on? Also, the station is going to be pretty much empty. And I think that would be, that's a good start if we're going to have the roof replaced. You don't want to have, you know, the dust shaking out of the rafters onto valuable so-called collections. It'll probably be, huh?
Yeah. So the answer is that we're not entirely sure. If you've got experience running a museum, if you've got ideas on what you think ought to be there, we'd love to hear from you.
I'll just throw in, I think at one point it was said that the station building would be completely returned to its period interior. Is that still something under consideration?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, next question. Will other tracks at Robertsdale be restored for handcar usage or just the one with the hoppers now?
Well, that one's not for handcar use. That's just for display.
Yeah, the handcar is going to go on the main, is it not?
It'll go, yeah, the handcar will go on the main.
So I think the big question is how far is the track work going to extend and on what tracks?
Well, it'd be on the main line. It's going to be less than a mile. We don't want it to go all the way to Woodvale. The anticipated problem is that people would come in that way and tear up the area on their four-wheelers.
Yeah, so I'll chime in a little bit there that basically the foundation has allowed us to go to mine 1 and a little beyond on the main. And as Jane mentioned, the hoppers are on the scale track, right? And the main will be used for eventual handcar rides. But yeah, right now it's cleared to mine 1 and maybe a little beyond. And we're going to continue to work with the foundation to see if we can go a little further than that. And yeah, the track the hoppers are on is pretty fully restored, right? All new ties, completely rebuilt. The handcar track is going to get, you know, ties only every so often, just enough for the handcar.
Right.
So
Okay, next question from an experienced member, Dean Melander. While we are replacing the roof, are we going to replace the knob and tube electric wiring?
I hope not.
So that's something we'll have to look at too. I'll chime in again. You know, maybe the knob and tube wiring doesn't get removed, but
Bypassed.
functionally gets replaced with Romex for safety.
Okay, that's all the questions we have for Robertsdale Restoration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete and Jane. Very much appreciate everything they're doing. They're doing amazing things. Like we said, they not only do membership and the timber transfer, but they've really come forward on the Robertsdale work, which is amazing. So you heard Pete talk about call for volunteers, right? So we definitely need volunteers out there to help. We need volunteers to help do some of the physical labor that's going on now, in addition to the folks that already are. And then also someone to help coordinate some of those museum operation kind of things too, so that Pete and Jane aren't doing all of that on top of everything else they do. So we want to help relieve them and keep them doing everything they already do. So much appreciated to them again. And that's a great segue. We have a lot of amazing people doing a lot of great things. And like I said earlier, Lee Rainey is one of those people that there's probably no other person who's had a bigger impact, not only on the survival of the EBT and a lot of what the Friends do, but also in just promoting knowledge of the railroad by with his book that is now nearly 40 years old. So, and lastly for today, the last main topic here on the agenda for the business meeting today is our 2021 fundraising campaign. So Lee, if you're up, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm up. I'm ready. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent. I think what Andy has just documented is that there's such a thing as not knowing when to stop. But he asked me to give some perspective as to what we're doing with the money that you folks have generously donated in years past, and also to talk a bit about what we hope to do in the future. And you saw earlier the financial balance sheet that Andy presented, and it showed the current bank balances. And as he pointed out, there are bills coming in that are going to draw down that money, but there's still some available to do some exciting things. So I want to talk first about what we're doing right now. And if you go on to the next slide, Randy, we are very pleased to be able to offer to the foundation a substantial restoration grant, drawing on our money in the restoration account. And Randy, next slide. Many of you who've walked the yards have seen the car shop. Some of you remember back years ago when all those driver tires that are piled up on the right-hand side of the picture actually were leaning against the car shop. And some of you will remember a very exciting day we had when we rolled those things away from the car shop and piled them up. They're very heavy and unwieldy. But the car shop had suffered from that experience. The drivers actually had cracked the east wall. So the wall structure is broken by that weight, and combined with the general problem in Rockhill that the ground is very damp and footers rot away over time, the carpenter shop is leaning at a very dangerous angle right now, to the point there's been some worry that it may not survive the winter. So, next slide. It has been adopted as an official FEBT project, and the FEBT has granted from our restoration fund $86,000 to the East Broadtop Foundation to hire the Woodford brothers, the professional barn rights, the guys that straighten out old post and beam buildings like that, to come this winter and prop the building up and get it level again, square and solid. And then, as we did in the blacksmith shop and various other buildings, the FEBT will finish up by replacing windows, lengthening the siding so it comes down to the ground again, and generally getting that building back in place. The building is full of interesting East Broadtop artifacts, and we're hopeful that once all is squared away and those have been cataloged, we'll also have additional workspace inside the building where we can do work like window sash and so on of a carpentry nature. So this is a major commitment, and it's a major recognition of the fact that the money that you all have given over many years to help restore the East Broadtop is now able to be invested in significant projects in company with the new nonprofit East Broadtop Foundation ownership. So next slide. Thank you for making this possible. That money represents what we collected in the restoration fund this year and a considerable chunk of what we collected in the last couple of years as well. So just to give you some sense of the size of this undertaking. Now, as Pete and Jane mentioned, good things happening in Robertsdale have some associated needs to go with them. So Randy, if you show the next slide. We have worked closely with the East Broadtop Foundation, and we've tried to implement two objectives. The first is we're trying to support the EBT Foundation commitment to stabilize the shop complex while at the same time preparing to resume operations. In addition, we've been mindful of the fact that the Friends of the East Broadtop is focused on restoring equipment and buildings that are part of the historic integrity of the railroad, going back to some of the questions that were asked of Mr. Posner earlier on. Even if that may not be used in day-to-day operation, we want it to look like the East Broadtop Railroad and preserve the buildings that give it that unique look and feel. So next slide. So what we're going to talk about here in a moment are not the only things that our work crews will work on in 2021, but they are projects that need to be done that are not yet funded. And that's what I want to talk about today. Randy, next slide. It starts with the revival that's going on in Robertsdale. Next slide. Jane stole my thunder. She showed the hopper cars already. I thought I was going to have breaking news here, but gosh, it's all old news now. A lot of exciting things that were talked about a moment ago. Next slide. Add up to two specific requirements. I don't know if you look closely at some of the pictures. Take a look at the picture that Jane took of the new store area. Right up in the top middle of the picture, you see some red wires hanging out of the ceiling. There's wires like that all through the museum building, because when it was renovated, it was wired for motion detectors to prevent break-ins and for fire detectors. And we're ready now to install the actual cameras, sensors, and the master control unit that realizes when something bad is happening and automatically contacts emergency response. That's going to cost us about $12,000. So that's one of the requirements we have for this year that's not yet funded. Next slide. At the same time, you heard that things are moving out of the depot. As Chris pointed out, the default, and we're open to suggestion on this, but the default is that the interior of the depot is restored to look like the depot looked like when it was in operation in freight days. And it becomes in itself a three-dimensional museum. The opportunity to do the roof exists now because the museum, or I should say the displays and stored materials, are moving over to the new museum building. So while the freight house is mostly empty, we want to get a roof contractor in to do a standing seam metal roof. And the cost of that is approximately $10,000. So those two unfunded requirements represent our fundraising needs for Robertsdale for 2021. Now, Randy, if you go one more slide, let's go up to Rockhill and take a look at what's going on there. Next slide. The coaling tipple at the south end of the yard has already been the focus of some work by Friends of the East Broadtop crews in years past. They stabilized the tipple, which involved installing that new roof that you see in the picture here. They began the process of restoring and repairing the chutes. The next phase will be to reopen the dump truck road, which comes up behind the tipple, so that trucks of coal can make their way up to the top, turn around, back up to the tipple, and dump coal into the tipple so it can be used in operation. This is one of the things the foundation has challenged us to do in support of the intent to return steam to operation at Rockhill. This is, in my mind, phase two. Phase one was the work that Steve and his crew did to stabilize the tipple some years ago. Phase two now returns it to operation. Phase three, which is coming up sometime in the future, will restore the tipple to its original appearance with the building up on top of the tipple. And you see that in the little inset there down to the right. But what we're hoping to do next year is basically make it operational for supporting steam operations. The goal to do that is to raise $10,000 that we need for that work. Next slide. That leaves one building in Rockhill that I want to talk about. And many of you have seen the advertisements in magazines that show starving children. And they say something like, you can pay 57 cents a day and save this child, or you can turn the page. This, unfortunately, is our equivalent of that in Rockhill. The wooden storehouse building that stands next to the stone house, that has sunk so far into the ground that the windowsill on the first floor is now below ground level. This is partly because the building is full of tons and tons of metal castings. But it's been inspected by the Woodford folks, and they tell us it can still be saved. The Friends of the East Broadtop will need to remove a lot of the material currently stored in the building. We'll dismantle the lean-to between the storehouse and the stone house, which was documented by one of Charlie's crews earlier this year. Woodford will lift the building, stabilize its foundation, and then we'll go in, replace the windows, lengthen the wall, put the lean-to back, and what right now is the most glaring example of decay and subsidence in the yard will once again look like it's supposed to look. The price tag for this is remarkably low compared to the carpenter shop. The carpenter shop, because of the way it's constructed, actually requires a great deal more work. The Woodford folks have given us an updated quote just recently. They can save this building for $46,000. So we're putting that on our target list for this year as well. The summary, if you've been keeping score as we go along here: museum security in Robertsdale Roofs Phase 1, $22,000. The coal tipple Phase 2, $10,000. The storehouse, $46,000. That's a total of $78,000. The campaign to raise that money started October 1st, and it runs until September 30th, 2021. And we're going to take advantage of our beautiful new newsletter and recognize all donors in the newsletter. Next slide. You can donate by credit card from the website. You can donate by credit card at the store. Actually, if you donate on the website, it takes you to the store, so the two end up in the same place. If you're a 1956 traditionalist, you can send a check or money order to Ray David Oski, our fundraising treasurer, and his mailing address can be found at febt.org/donate. We'll accept the money any way it comes, and will recognize you in the newsletter. Next slide. We very much appreciate the support that we've received over the last 20 years to save what we could in Robertsdale, in Rockhill, and along the line of places like the Coles Tank. May we have your continued support now for this next phase. This is perhaps the most strategic moment in the last several decades at the East Broad Top. With the railroad working very hard to reopen, we need to back that up by completing some of these projects that will support the historic appearance of the railroad. So looking forward to your support. I've already made my donation, and I hope the rest of you will join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lee. Very impressive, and I'm excited for us to push and even exceed that goal this year. Our membership has been generous, and I think we'll hit it with everybody's support. So much appreciated. Chris, were there any other last questions?
There were a few. One came in about the security system in Robertsdale, asking whether it was going to require internet access for that to function.
My understanding is that it does not.
Okay. The next question, any thought in Robertsdale to reinstalling the little mail tram from the track to the post office? And I don't know if that's a Lee question or a Jane question.
I think that's a Pete and Jane question.
Yes.
Yes, there is consideration for that.
Well, get it done. What are you waiting for? And the last question was, I think, was just answered as it was being asked. How can you donate and contribute to the campaign? Again, that's FEBT.org/donate. And that should take you right to all the information you need in order to make a contribution, and those are certainly welcome. And that's all we have for questions.
Thank you, Chris. Randy, just back up one slide to show the links there. You can see the FEBT.org/donate that Chris just mentioned. So much appreciated. And there'll also be a letter in the next timber transfer that we'll talk about this as well. But definitely go to the website. That's the easiest way to do it. Is via the store.
Andy, I had one quick question for Lee. When you mentioned the $46,000 for the storehouse, you only showed one storehouse. Is that for both buildings or just the one that was being shown?
It actually involves mostly work on the right-hand building. There's one corner post on the left-hand building that is in trouble that will be repaired as part of this work. But surprisingly, the left-hand storehouse is in much better condition. So raising the middle one and then doing the one corner that they share will stabilize the left-hand storehouse as well.
Okay. Back to you, Andy.
Thank you, and thank you for everything you do. Definitely with that, I want to thank everybody. It's fun to be involved with an organization that does so many amazing things. And I will just say it's hard just to keep up with everything that's going on within the Friends. So I appreciate everything everybody does, appreciate the member support, and look forward to wrapping up 2020 this year with a little bit more work here. And then 2021, I think, will be quite the banner year as we progress and the railroad works towards reopening. So looking forward to it. If folks didn't get a chance to ask their questions today or think of things later or just ever have questions, generally my email is in the timber transfer. We have links to different emails on the website as well. My email personally is just my last name @gmail.com. Don't flood me too much and don't expect responses in 5 minutes, but I'm happy to talk with the membership anytime. So vansyok@gmail.com. So anyhow, with that, I think we've covered everything that was on the agenda. We've run over time just a little bit, but just goes to show there's a lot going on, a lot of great stuff. So with that, I would be more than happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Chris. The meeting is adjourned, and appreciate everything everybody's doing. Have a good afternoon, and I'll turn it back over to Randy. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just say thank you very much, Randy. I don't think Randy got to thank himself for organizing this reunion, and he's doing a great job. Now back over to Randy.
Thanks, Andy. I'm happy to be here helping out in whatever capacity I can. I got to say, wow, that is probably, well, that is definitely the most exciting business meeting that I have had the privilege of witnessing since I've been a member of the organization. So much going on, great stuff going on, and I think we can look forward to years of more great stuff in the future.